Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's the Full 40 with Chris and Willie, part of the Nova Insider Network. Rob, still part of the podcast.
Still here.
Couldn't make it tonight. Still here. Couldn't make it tonight. So you're just rolling with Chris and Willie.
Rumor has it he has big COVID. I'm making that up, but we're making up rumors from it. So
yeah, this is the rumor podcast, and right now the rumor is that Rob is feeling a little COVID-y at the moment.
Yeah.
So can't confirm or deny the rumors, but he'll be back on the next podcast after whatever illness that he may or may not have hits the portal and leaves. So
allegedly.
So a couple things to cover. We're going to start with the women's team. They finished their tournament run this past Friday, and then we found out yesterday. So it's Thursday at March 28th at 9 o'clock. Tuesday.
I was about to say, is it fucking Thursday?
Oh my God.
Holy
dude,
hell.
Today was a whole week in a day. It's Tuesday, March 28th at 9 p.m. We found out yesterday, Monday, the 27th, that Maddie has officially declared for the WNBA draft and will not use her last remaining year of eligibility, which will cap just the outstanding career that she's had at Villanova. And she won't be moving on. So
which also makes sense though. Like people forget she redshirted. She's been in college for 5 years.
Yeah.
There's like realistically, no matter how good you are, like 6 years of college is like, all right, I gotta get on with the next stage in my life. And I'm really excited to see that for Maddie.
Agreed. Yeah, so just like talking about that and the team a little bit. So yeah. We played Miami on Friday in the 4-9 game, and Miami was game. And it's kind of funny because their women's team and their men's team were both seeded. Like the men's team was a 5, but their women's team as a 9 kind of was like they're both kind of pulled off upsets as this tournament has gone on, and they kind of both pulled it off in the same way. Like
they
excellent,
play very similarly, like across the board. It's like they have a culture, frankly. Like whatever you want to talk about the NIL aspect of things, the way they play very similarly. They have a lot of guards. They have good bigs, and the guards are special, and they're able to put the ball in the basket at a high level. And they gave us trouble for the first half, and then we adjusted, finally
we adjusted. It took way too fucking long to adjust.
A little bit was Destiny Harden was on the bench, but we pressed and they couldn't handle it. And across the board, we just saw just nothing but success going from the 16-minute mark of the second half to basically the 4-minute mark. Then we kind of stopped pressing once we got the lead, which I think was the big mistake. Should have just kept pressing them. That also Miami was able to make some buckets. And yeah, at the end of the day, we just didn't make the plays down the stretch. I don't really blame this on anyone. Like it was the comeback part of the game was genuinely the most excited I've been watching a basketball game all season.
It was nuts. It was pretty wild.
It was wild.
Yeah, the way we erased that deficit was insane. Yeah, so I agree. I have a question on Miami, though, men's and women's. Is their NIL situation, like some people like to rag on it, like whatever, like I don't actually think it's a terrible thing. No. But do you think that the significance of the NIL thing kind of makes their players, men and women, a little bit more like how we see kind of the NBA play out a little bit, in the sense that the NBA, it feels like some of these star teams like play good enough to get the seed that they want for the playoffs. And then when the playoffs hit, they have another gear because everyone goes that much harder. And then that's when the NIL bought, if you want to call it, I don't want to call it bought, but like whatever you want to say. That's when the talent that is actually there playing at 110% shines through, and they're able to compete higher than their seed line might suggest. Do you think that there's something to that?
Like maybe a little bit. Like I think about it, it's a little bit. I would say maybe a little bit. It's interesting, but it goes in twofold. Honestly, the way I look at it, if we start off with the men's team, they like there's a misconception around like the team being completely NIL built. Like Isaiah Wong had been there. Jordan
Right.
Miller was a transfer, but had been there like for another like for a year prior to that. And Jordan Miller had a fantastic game. Then yes, they pulled in Nigel Pack, and that was the whole big one. You know, given $400,000. What's his name? John Ruiz from Life Alert or whatever his name is,
Yeah.
first or whatever. I can't remember the company is. Gave $400,000. That's kind of like the big one. Norshad Ormir, who was at Arkansas State the year before, who was a monster at Arkansas State, and their big man who put up like 13 and 10 this season also. But with the men's team, it's interesting because like they also won the ACC. So it's like they've kind of been there the whole time. They just were like, I would say inconsistent, and like they definitely couldn't have won the Big East the way. No, they could have won the Big East based on talent, but the way that their season played out, they wouldn't have won in the Big East. They wouldn't have won in the Big 12. They wouldn't have won in the Big 10 because they just weren't consistent enough. But the ACC had just enough flatness and like frankly lack of great teams that like they were able to win the ACC. And then to your point though, I do think that Miami NIL allowed them to be built for March. And so like and built for March is, do you have one big who can stretch the floor, who can, or not even stretch the floor being a shooter, but like it's mobile at the very least, can protect the rim, can help at the rim, and then do you have guards? We all know guards win, and Miami has two very high level guards in Wong and Nigel Pack. And then from the women's side, I think it's a little bit of that, where like, all right, I believe Destiny Harden had always been at Miami. I'm trying to remember if that's the case, but then got the Cavender twins from Fresno State, I believe, and like let me just double check. Had Destiny Harden always been in Miami? I believe. Okay, was at West Virginia in 2017, but like that was before NIL. So Harden is essentially has always been there, stepped up, and even Harden wasn't even that good in her first couple of years, and then eventually hit something. So when I look at it from a Miami, like from the Hurricane standpoint, I don't. I think the women lady Hurricanes. I don't know if that's what they call them, but they might just be called the Hurricanes. I think from that side, when I look at it, it's like a little NBA-ish, but I also think that works. Like that's where college basketball is going.
Right. I get that. No, it's not, to me, it's not a complaint.
No, yeah.
I'm just asking very factually, just like, is there something to this where you might expect teams that are heavily built on NIL? North Carolina comes up as an example from last year's team, like heavy NIL built teams that kind of like do enough and then play way above their season performance in the tournament. That's kind of like just a question I had.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find morsels of like where this might be going in the future. And like Miami is like an interesting test case to see if that'll become the case going forward. Because Miami also did the same thing last year where they kind of got through the season and then all of a sudden got hot like in March.
I forgot what they were seeded last year, but they got to the Elite Eight. Like and had Kansas on the ropes. Like
right. So look, we lose that tough game. I thought, to your point, I thought getting down, I really was kind of getting a little bit upset with Dylan and kind of the strategy. I really thought we should have played a 2-3 zone. I thought we were just getting destroyed on drives just to throw them off a little bit. I just don't know if that's not something that's part of it, but I feel like I've seen us play zone before. We played a matchup zone the other day. But like, so like, I feel like we could play zone. So I was a little bit confused by that, but nevertheless, we did make the adjustments, got the game back in control and then some, and then couldn't make the shots down the stretch. And then a couple of days later, we found out that Maddie Siegrist has decided, as I said earlier, to move on and to enter the WNBA draft. Willie, you made a great point. She's been here for 5 years, which I'm not sure everyone realizes that.
Yeah.
But she's had just a wonderful career. And I really think that we talked a lot about the personal accolades and the season that she's had and all of that. She's now the second highest. She had the second best scoring season ever. And so we've talked a lot about her season accolades, her career accolades, and all of that. That's wonderful. But the thing that I really want to call out, because it really interplays well with the fact that this was probably or one of our best women's teams ever, is that this Sweet 16 loss, I'm just being candid, being very honest with you about this here. And I think it has a lot to do with just the overall kind of success or lack thereof of our women's program over the years, is that this Sweet 16 loss was genuinely the first time I watched this program play a game, lose, and I felt genuinely frustrated and annoyed, sad, angry, like went through all the emotions that I normally feel when the men's team gets knocked out of the tournament. Right? Like all of those emotions came flooding in because I was like, fuck, man, like shit, like I can't believe we lost that game. That sucks. Like I wanted to make the Elite Eight, go on this run. Like we had a chance to go to the Final Four. Like it was just kind of like all those things were playing in my head. And like, I know it sounds weird, but like the fact that I was pissed off watching the game when we were getting down big, and the fact that I was annoyed, sad, upset after the fact, kind of like tells you kind of like the emotional investment level in this. Like for me, it wasn't like, oh, this is just kind of nice. Right. Like I was genuinely getting annoyed that like we weren't performing better during the first half of that game. And then I was genuinely getting like excited, upset, like excited and ultimately upset about the result of that game. And I know that seems like, all right, well, you just care more about the men's team than the women, maybe. But honestly, I think it's more that the team just hasn't been good enough to really like put that investment in. And now they seem like they're invested. And I put a lot of that on Maddie lifting this program to new levels.
Yeah. And like, I think with that, it's like, I feel like maybe for like people who weren't really into the women's program pre-Maddie, let's say, or pre-whatever, and a bit more transactional where you're kind of watching, and not transactional in the way that you like are paying, but it's more like, all right, I'm watching because it's a Villanova women's team. Oh, they didn't win. All right, that's whatever. You could connect with maybe like one or two players on the team. I feel like that's maybe how people felt. But this is a testament to Maddie and also all the girls on the team and Denise. Just like this change from being transactional to where like you for all season, people were emotionally into this team. Your emotions were bought in like across the board. It wasn't just Maddie. It was watching like Lucy Olson's my favorite player on the team. It was watching. It was Bella Runyon. It was Christina Dalsey. It was Zy Jones. It was all these players that like you've begun to like, yeah, no, we see this is the team. This is our Wildcats. We're not just watching the Villanova women's Wildcats. Villanova, I don't even think we're the Lady Wildcats. The Villanova Wildcats.
Just the Villanova Wildcats.
Yeah, they're just the Villanova Wildcats. But like I'm watching my team right now, and that was, and like, yeah, maybe part of it was was the men's team wasn't as like good, but like I think that's even taking away from the credit that like we had one of the, I'm going to go ahead and say 30 best women's college basketball players of all time. On the 100%. Like, I'm just from a pure scoring standpoint, like we'll see what the WNBA career looks like, but like this was like, I mean, I've thought this in my head. It was like watching Elena Deldon. Like that's what Elena Deldon did at Delaware was what Maddie's did for us. And now what I hope is, unlike Delaware, where Delaware kind of tanked after Elena left, that we're able to continue to ride the wave. We have more funding, we have a better program, all these different reasons that we should continue to get a little bit better. But Maddie was just such a singular and special athlete and clearly a special person, just everything that you saw from her off the court, that it just emotionally, I feel like people were more bought in. And that's where that pain that you felt, where it wasn't transactional, where, oh, a Villanova team lost. It was my Villanova team lost. And that was like the big difference in my eyes.
Yeah. And it feels like, it's not exactly the same, obviously, but they kind of play like Villanova basketball. You know what I mean?
Oh, like completely,
they're like it's a team like that Denise Dillon has created a team and a culture that feels like a Villanova basketball team should have, right? Like It's not copycat off of Jay Wright. It's not inauthentic. It's not stolen valor. It's none of that. But though the team has the markings of like a Villanova team on the come up.
Yep.
That's the best way I could describe it. Like that 2013 team, the 2014 team on the men's side, where you felt like, okay, this program's rising up right now, and it's on the come up, like, and you could tell the players were starting to have some more fun playing games. Like this year's men's team, like call a spade, like didn't have fun, right? Like I was talking to a fan of the podcast and wonderful alum, and I'm not going to say her name because I don't want to call her out, but like, or put her on blast to anybody, or whatever. But she pulled me aside at MSG. We were talking, and she says, Chris, these guys don't look like they're having a good time. Like, whereas the girls or the women, like, we're having a fucking blast out there.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and it was fun watching them have fun. And it was fun watching them be awesome while they were also having fun. Right. And Maddie and everything that she's done in being this, I agree, top 30 women's basketball player, maybe ever, right? Like has lifted this program up with it's not like terribly young, but an experienced young coach, because it's hard to get a job early, right? Like an experienced young coach in Denise Dillon, who's fiery. She's got all the intensity that you want. She's classy as all hell. Like we need Villanova people to be, because that's just kind of what the program and what the department and the school demands.
Yep.
But like competitive, like intense. Like they have lifted this program and put them on their shoulders and changed the fundamental direction of this program. I fully believe that.
Yeah.
And look, do I think next year probably looks like a step back without Maddie Sears? I mean, how could you say it won't be?
Yeah.
How could you say it won't be? But there's a lot of pieces there, man. Like your girl Lucy Olson, man, she's gonna be a fun guard to track.
Yeah.
You brought up Christina Dalce, like she is I think that she was awesome this year, and she has a lot more to unearth in terms of potential.
Yep.
In terms of finishing, like it's not really be too critical, but struggles a little bit finishing around the rim. But she's a hell of a rebounder. She fights like hell on the glass. And so the two of them, there's you look for it. See, everything college basketball. You need a big and you need a guard. And we have some pieces there to build the team around, and a lot of the team comes back. So
only people who should be leaving are Maddie Segrist and Brooke Mullen. They're the only two seniors. Like, obviously, maybe someone could transfer, but like, it's there. And like, so you look, and then I know we have two recruits coming in. They're both guards, and heck, maybe you try and pull one high-level transfer in who can like give us 70% of what Maddie was. And then you run it again, and you hope for growth, like you said, from Lucy, from Christina, from Maddie Burke, from Caitlin Oriole, and then you're like just like with internal growth that like you can see that happening. But like a lot of it's going to come down to like Lucy Olson taking a big step forward, which I think she's more than capable of.
Oh yeah, she showed the flashes of it.
Yeah,
like her play consistently elevated as the season went on, and so I think with a good off season, she's going to be awesome next year. All right, so that kind of covers the women's side. On the men's side, we talked about the Rumors podcast. This is the Rumors podcast. We are in rumor season. We're in portal season. I know it's a Final Four, and we can talk about that a little bit, but like the portal is hot. The stove is cooking, and man, there's a lot going on, and yet not a lot going on. Villanova, what's going on?
A lot of nothing. It's a lot of nothing. Yeah.
It's a lot of stress.
Yeah. It's stressful nothing. Yep.
It's a stressful amount of nothing. It's just anticipation and anxiety right now. And not in a great way. So let's just talk about Justin Moore first, because that's been the biggest topic, right? And like, I have to say, I kind of feel bad for Justin, because
can we take a step back? Because I think there's people who may have not been on Twitter today, and maybe, had an actual life and didn't hear any of these rumors that like, because today I feel like we've heard, there were like bubblings like in the last couple of weeks, but then today it was like, I heard like 4 different teams just today. Yeah. I was like, what the heck?
I was just going to say, I feel bad for Justin, because based on where the rumors is, he's going to be playing for 4 to 5 different colleges. He might be in the G League. maybe on a two-way contract, and maybe in Europe. He's he's not doing any load management next year. He's got a busy schedule.
He has figured out like self-replication, which would
Yeah,
be pretty cool if he could do that.
It's impressive. So let's just talk about all the schools where Justin's been rumored to go. Ohio State. His brother apparently plays football or something at Ohio State, so he's going to go to Ohio State. Syracuse, who apparently Cole Swider is like talking to him or something like that. Cole Swider is now, I don't know, is he on the Lakers?
He is on the Lakers. Yep.
Yeah. Cole Swider is talking to him or whatever. So we heard that rumor. Then we have today in the morning, we woke up to North Carolina pumping their chest, being like, Justin Moore is fucking coming to UNC, baby. Like, he's coming. Like, and then, so we got, those were three. All throughout, we've heard Maryland floating around in there.
Yep.
I heard Georgetown today. Georgetown came up as a school that he was going to go to today. And Maryland and Georgetown, out of all the schools, Maryland and Georgetown seem to make the most sense to me, only because he's from the DMV.
Yeah.
So at least with those schools, like, I'm like, all right, like, I get that, like, in a sense of like, I want to be a little bit closer to home in the final year when he's trying to put something together to hopefully get himself into a two-way or a second round draft pick type situation next year. Like, I guess I could get that.
I've seen one more one, which I don't know where the heck this came from. I saw Indiana somewhere, and I was like, what is going on? All of this is just pure consternation. It's pure just rumor mill. Like, that's not to say Justin isn't going to transfer. Justin may decide to transfer. That's not to say that any of those are wrong. Like, at least one of them will be right, or potentially one of them could fucking transfer to Gonzaga. Who knows? Like, he could make any decision at this point. We're all just consternating. The idea is, though, like, Justin could come back to Villanova. That's completely still an option. There's just a lot of rumors, and for the sake of rumors, there's no real reason for it. Maybe that's what we're waiting on, is Justin to make a decision. Who knows? But like, at the end of the day, like, I do feel bad for Justin because he's done nothing but be a consummate Villanova basketball player. I'm not going to say rushed back from an Achilles injury, but like, definitely could have taken his time more and came back and honestly gave us the best moments of the season. Just like the hope that we had this season came back when Justin came back. Like, he did that. So if Justin feels, for whatever reason he decides, whether he wants to go be a little closer to home, whether he wants to go hang out with his brother, whether he wants to, I don't know, go pretend to be Michael Jordan at UNC, go hang out with Cole Swider, who's not at Syracuse, whatever the reasons may be, more power to him. I don't know. I'm just at the stage of like, there's so much nonsense in the air that I'm like, we'll let Justin do what Justin's going to do. He'll make his decision. And if he's staying at Villanova, if he goes to league, if he goes to another school, I'm going to wish him the best no matter what.
Yeah. Let's talk about this a little bit deeper though. So let's answer this question. What does it mean for the program if Justin Moore leaves? Right? Like, and to be clear, we've said on this podcast, we've been very consistent throughout this podcast that we do not expect Justin Moore to be a Villanova Wildcat next year. Now, my expectation was that he was going to go pro. I look at the tea leaves and I say he turns 23, 23 soon. I think his birthday is in April. He turns 23 soon, plays another year in college and be 24, right? Like, before he plays any type of professional ball. Now, if he's good enough, he'll play and earn a good living, either overseas or wherever, G League, whatever it may be, maybe find his way into a two-way, be like kind of like a rookie, Wily rookie in a way, like in some way on some type of two-way if he can prove his value enough. But I didn't expect Justin to be back as a Villanova Wildcat next season. But I think where it might hit differently for people, Willie, is that it's one thing if he goes pro. I think a lot of people would just be like, okay, he's decided to move on.
Yeah.
He's done with college, like Maddie. Like, they're done with college, right? Like, Maddie could have probably pulled a pretty big NIL deal. Oh, and it'll be a higher value than whatever she's going to get as a first-year contract in the WNBA.
Completely.
But like, is done. She's done. She's soul searched. She's like, I like, look, I love Villanova. I love college, but I need to move on. Right. Like, and so she just wants to move on. And I could get that. I think everyone else could get that if Justin Moore decides to move on. Tore his Achilles, came back, did what he could with the team, and is just gotten to the point where he's like feeling a little less connected and wants to move on to the next phase of his life. My question for you is, what does that mean for the program if Justin decides to transfer?
So there's a lot that I feel like it could mean. I think the first thing I'm thinking about is if the way I interpret it is if Justin decides to transfer, it's probably because, and like this is something like I thought Justin would just go pro, and I frankly didn't really take this into account when I was thinking about it. It's because of NIL, and it's because somewhere, some school, and we named all pretty schools with pretty big pockets that could give him an NIL deal that he just couldn't get at Villanova. Maybe Villanova matches whatever it is, and Justin gets the Nigel Pack $400,000. The reason why, like, what it means for the program is, well, the reason why he'd take that is in the G League, no matter what he does, unless he gets a two-way, which is probably unlikely, just because he needs to he needs to prove more. Unless he gets a two-way, he's not making $400,000. He's not making $300,000. If he's just a straight up G League contract, he is going to be making maybe $75,000, maybe $90,000, depending on like the priority that they give him. So there's that math of like the mental math of like, all right, I'm 23. Do I go yada yada yada? Do the math of do I make $75,000 or do I make $400,000 or do I want to start my career or do I push it back? Those are all the things that he's considering. From a program perspective, if it's NIL related and there's just a bigger NIL bag, I think it tells us that like we got some catching up to do, or we don't, and we stay consistent to the way that we are, but we just understand that these are going to be, I'm not even going to call them misses, but just opportunities that we won't be a part of if players are looking for $400,000 and we're deciding to say no to that, which is completely fair.
It's a management decision.
Yeah, that's a management decision, and that's and I'm honestly like, I don't blame anyone for that. I think Boeheim, there was a transfer, or not even a transfer, a college kid that Boeheim was talking to, and I can't remember what his name was. And this came up like maybe in January or December. And Boeheim was like, yeah, this person was like asking for like $600,000 NIL. And I just told him, no, make that decision. That's completely fair. There's no issue with that. But if Justin were to transfer, I would assume it's an NIL decision. And what just Villanova needs to do, and so this isn't anything that I have any insight into or that we have, but it's just like look in the mirror of, all right, did we make our best offer? And is there room to grow and still adhere to what we believe Villanova should be in the NIL world? If they believe that they're hitting that, I have nothing to say. Like, I'm like, all right, do you? Because I don't want us to be Miami shelling out $500,000 for every player. I get it. But I do think that there's room to grow. That's what I think it means from a Justin and NIL perspective. What I think happens is there's a domino effect. Right. And I can't even begin to like figure out what that domino effect looks like. But like we saw how Justin was the core of the team this season. The domino effect that happens after, if Justin decides to leave, will be very interesting. I don't know who would be leaving. The only person I know who will be leaving is Cam. Cam is gone. Once again, Cam will leave and go be in the NBA, whether he's the 4th pick or he's the 10th pick. That's basically his range. He's going to go to the NBA. Beyond that, like maybe people stay, maybe they go. I have no clue. But the second part of me for the program is if Justin leaves, that there's a domino effect, and whatever we do in the portal needs to be amplified.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah.
On the portal front needing to be amplified. But I guess let's get at the question here. Yeah. Like I don't want to dance around this. What does this say about Kyle Neptune?
Personally, I have like two thoughts. There's one that's like, all right, maybe they just like don't want to play for him. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but in the way that like Justin, like specifically, I'm just gonna start with Justin. Justin committed to play for Jay. Right. Yeah, Kyle was part of the recruiting process and all that stuff, but you commit to play for the head coach. Came back early for the team, for the head coach, has just decided I'm willing to go in my other direction. If there's dominoes that fall, they'll transfer for their individual reasons. What I think it says about Neptune, honestly, I'm not going to, with Justin specifically, I don't think it says anything. I think this is a Kyle Neptune agnostic decision. if it's Justin. If other people transfer who are like still around, I'm not going to throw names because I don't ever. You can figure out who we're like who I'm alluding to. I don't want to like throw out names.
Let's just be honest. I've heard a rumor. We don't have to name names, but I've heard a rumor about every single one of the players on the team
completely
not named Chris Archidiakono and Colin O'Toole. I've heard rumors about every single one. I don't think I certainly don't think they're all going to pan out, but I think we could just put that on the table that there hasn't been a person who hasn't been in my DMs, who hasn't sent me screenshots from View Hoops, who hasn't or View Sports, who hasn't texted me or whatever. Every single player has been on the table from multiple folks.
Yeah.
And not to say they're all well sourced or whatever. I take everything with a grain of salt. But like every single player other than Chris Arch and Colin O'Toole, I have heard some type of rumor of some type of transfer, whether that was 2 weeks ago and then later got a follow-up that said, no, I don't think that's off the table now or whatever. Like there has been a progression this season where it looked like there was a moment where the cupboard might be bare and we had to do a full-blown rebuild.
Yep.
But sorry, I just wanted to interrupt.
No, that's fair.
Point because it's worth saying that like had that transpired, had something along those lines transpired, you cannot get the Kyle conversation away. You can't get out of the Kyle conversation.
You have to talk about it in that situation. Yeah, and that's basically like what I've been like. I think thank you for like playing that. Like I'm like trying to avoid being like that situation happens because if that happens, you have to look in the mirror. That's just what it is. The good side of this is we know, once again, Kyle's getting at least another year, probably another 2 years. No matter what happens, every player who commits to Villanova from this point on is committing to Kyle Neptune.
Agreed.
And that's where it's huge. So we spoke about last podcast, 24 and 25, we have positive momentum. Players are interested. Yet, like you commit to the school, yes, but you commit to the coach more than anything. Like that's who you're there to play for. So what I feel the positive, or not the positive, but the glass half full look is, okay, anyone who leaves can be leaving for whatever reason it may be, but more importantly, whoever comes in is committing to Kyle. And that's where we see, like, frankly, this year, this coming season, and next year, we see who's Kyle Neptune. And we get to see, like, what he gets to do when the people are there for him. What does it mean if we have a full exodus? I think we all know it's like, all right, something's wrong. Like, that's just frankly what it is.
I don't know how you get away from that.
Yeah. I don't think there's going to be a full exodus. So
no, I don't either.
So
I don't either. I don't think there's going to be a full exodus.
Yeah.
I think there could start a domino effect if Justin decides to transfer.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone's staying on the team because Justin.
Yeah.
But it does seem like with all here's what I'll say. I don't want to say smoke, there's fire, but since the hottest rumors always seem to be Justin, and that has to do with his stature of a player.
Yeah.
But like, since the hottest rumors seem to be Justin, it feels like everyone is holding back to finalize any life choices before the best player on the team makes that decision.
Yep.
So I feel like we're going to get somewhere soon. Now, does Justin have to? I don't even know what it looks like. Do we just hear nothing, and then the transfer portal window expires, and Justin's like, "Yeah, I'm here." Like
my bet would be, what we hear is Justin declares for the draft, enters the portal, and says, "I'm keeping my Villanova option open," and just does all three. So we hear nothing because it means nothing.
we just get back to where we were.
But he officially puts all three out there. That would be just based on the amount of rumors. Like, I can't imagine that all these rumors are happening and he's not at least considering the portal. Like, and also he'd be silly not to consider.
I'm sure that people are reaching out. Look, this is the knife game of basketball now in the portal era, where it's like, haha, like I'm gonna fucking get you. Like,
if you're a coach and you're not reaching out to Justin Moore, you're not doing your job.
Yeah, right. Like, and it's like, is that tampering? I don't even know what his rules are anymore. Is it tampering to reach out like to a player? Or do you reach out through people who are kind of like involved in the program, not part of the program? Like, I don't know how it all works.
There's a lot of rules that need to be made around this that we just aren't.
That is an interesting point, though, that you bring that up.
Yeah.
Because there are rules now around this that changed a little bit, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because the NCAA came in and said, you can transfer one freebie for everybody still, but then your second one, unless it's your grad transfer year. So like, let's just play this out. You play 2 years, transfer, freebie transfer, play another 2 years. Then you're a grad transfer guy. And then you bolt to another school to play your grad transfer year, which was always allowed. That's what Joe Cremo did. Like we've seen that before. Like, unless it's like that, then like if you transfer a second time, even if like and it's saying accordingly that like even if your coach leaves or something like that, that you have to sit out a full more year. So like that's kind of like, which is like the old way.
We're on opposite sides of that also, I think.
Well, I'm not necessarily for it or against it. Like, my point is that, like, I get where the NCAA is coming from in its attempt to, here's what I'm saying. You're shaking your head. I get where it's coming from in its attempt to basically say to these players, like, careful what you wish for, because if you use your freebie transfer, like, too early, and then you go transfer from a coach who then leaves, and this example is very clear with Cooley right now going to Georgetown, then like you won't be able to leave, right? Like, and like, look, the coaching change point, I think is a fair point to rectify that potential issue. But I think where the NCAA is trying to get at is actually to try and avoid the Cooley situation, where I think Cooley left for Georgetown thinking, I'm going to take everybody with me. He took all his coaching staff. He's already brought some of the recruits over as of today. And like, you know, he's got a couple other players who are in the portal. And then he's got Hopkins and Carter who have already transferred and now kind of like are like all quiet on the Western Front here in terms of what they're going to do. So like, look, I'm not saying I'm for it or against it. All I'm saying is I kind of get where they're coming from on this. But like you are very passionate. I know this because we've talked offline about it. You're very passionate about the coaching change situation, and I get that. I just think that I do like the fact that the NCAA is trying to like limit this a little bit.
Big Charlie Baker defender over here, Chris, defending the NCAA, protecting the shield. No, I hear you. I just think if your coach leaves, you should have free reign. But that's really the only place that we differ on it, is that regard. I do like the structure behind it. It's going to reduce the amount of like hopping of transfers, which is important, especially because like, all right, you make that, there's still the free agency play. Like you still have the free, like one time, go off, do whatever you want to do. Two, think a little bit more about it. When you transfer for a coach and that coach leaves, it's not great. But I do think I didn't think about your point about Cooley. Just being able to Cooley it's basically pulling Providence to Georgetown. The Georgetown Friars is essentially what he's trying to make it. So I completely get that.
Provincetown, the Georgia Dints, Froyas.
Yeah. The
Froyas. So like, look, we kind of digressed a long way away from the Villanova conversation, but that'll also, I think that's also might play a factor, is this new rule is kind of like, I don't know. So look, with Justin, I would give a pass to Neptune on Justin for all the factors that you laid out. I don't think it looks good. There's no like good spin on it.
No, there's not. Yeah.
But like, I think you could spin it away from bad. I could kind of buy that.
It's not good for the program. It doesn't necessarily reflect bad on Kyle. If Justin
That's leaves. My point. That's my point. I don't care that they didn't commit to play for Jay Wright. Like, I'm just going to go out and say this. Like, it's not me saying they should be fired. Like, he should be fired or whatever. If this team loses Mark Armstrong, then I think you have to have a conversation. Like, let's just say it's only him. And I don't think it will be. Based on how invested his mother is on Twitter and everything like that. Like, just reading the tea leaves there, like, he's going to get the keys to the car. So I don't think that I don't think that Mark will transfer. But if if Mark were to transfer, I think you got to point at Kyle, because that's a guy who was like literally like, you are being handed the keys to be the point guard of Villanova, which does mean something, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like that does carry some significance. It's not quite shortstop for the Yankees, but it means something, right? Like,
Yeah.
so like, it's like you're getting handed the keys to that and you choose to walk away from it, then that's kind of on the coach, right? So like
And to that point, like I have a hard time. I'm trying very hard to not be super critical of Kyle in this meantime. But to that point, Mark's never played for Jay. Like, yeah, he committed to come here, but he never played for Jay. So that's where it's like it can really only reflect on Kyle, because like anyone else who has played for Jay were to leave, it's like, well, all right, maybe they just don't like Kyle's style. Like they've seen college basketball styles, they've seen Jay, and then maybe they just don't like Kyle's style. Like you can kind of make that case, but I do hear what you're saying. Mark has the key to be like Colin Gillespie, Jalen Brunson, Ryan Archidiakono, Corey Fisher, Scotty Reynolds, Randy Foy, Kyle Lowry. Like I just listed essentially the last 7 starting point guards. Every single one of them, except for 2, were NBA players. And Colin hasn't played a game yet, but he'll get there.
right, like you guys to follow in the lineage of Villanova basketball point guards. Like I'm sorry, that means something. Like so, like if he were to leave, I would put that on Kyle's shoulders. I just can't. I can't get away.
I hear you. Yeah, I completely hear you with that.
Like, and he's from nearby, right? Like a guy like a Brendan Hausen, like is from Texas, right? So like if he wanted to like go to Texas Tech or University of or whatever, like
there's a good school in Houston. Good team there. That
like I could even get that, right? Like so, like there's elements of all of that I kind of understand. Mark would be just to
Mark's
me.
The one. Yeah,
that's the one that's like you can't have that.
I think that's a fair point, and I think the big thing is also just like we're just still in the dark. And like, I'm not saying Villanova needs to come out with a press release, and we're just going to continue being in the dark. And it's going to be interesting because whatever happens, I wonder if it's going to be domino effect or if it's going to be cascade all at one time, where is it going to happen all in one day where everyone leaves, or is it going to be like slow rolled announcement and then like the next day someone announces? I'm just kind of curious how it's going to happen, because I think that will also, I mean, to call it spade a spade, we'll see. That'll dictate how the fans react, like frankly.
100%. The other side to this is our reach outs in the portal. And this is something that's very interesting to me, because I felt very confident coming on the first podcast postseason, which is I guess 2 podcasts ago. I felt very confident coming on that podcast and basically saying we need a 5-man. Willie, I've seen us reach out to wings. I've seen us reach out to guards. I've seen us reach out to forwards. We have not reached out to a single center. I could be wrong there, but I think my mind is right. Like I think we've reached out to maybe 15 people. I don't know. Is it 15 at this point?
It might be around there.
10 to 15. I've seen us on the list for 10 to 15 people. Some of my memory might get a little bit mixed up because in the middle of all of this portal stuff, like we've also been on lists for 24 guys and 25 guys. So I'm like getting a little bit like.
And that's actually a good point. We do have are in the mix with 2, maybe 3 24 bigs. So it might just be like we want to develop our bigs and we don't want to pull one in.
But the other guy who I thought was definitely going to transfer was Nana Njoku. Hasn't seen the floor in 2 years, right? Like obviously he spent a lot of time hurt this year.
Yeah.
But just kind of like MIA completely. I believe we medical redshirt tagged him.
This year?
This year. I believe, I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay.
But I thought I remember hearing that this past year we redshirt tagged him kind of after the fact because he was hurt most of the year and we just kind of roll with that. I think he got spot minutes in like 2 or 3 games. So I think he would still be eligible for the medical redshirt. I don't hold my feet to the fire on that. I just think that that's the case. I thought for sure he would transfer. I really did. I really thought like he was going to leave, and he hasn't left yet. And like, that's not a transfer that like, he doesn't need to wait for Justin Moore to transfer. like he can move on. Right. And I thought Trey Patterson might leave, and again, another guy who doesn't need to wait for more to find out his answer, like doesn't play anywhere near the same position as him.
Yep.
Like none of that. Trey and Nana did not leave. Like, look, and that's great. Like, it's fine. But I am a little bit surprised because in my view, in order to keep and maintain and develop Eric Dixon, and we've said this time and time again, Eric needs to be able to play at least a good chunk of minutes at the 4.
Yep.
We've talked about this ad nauseam in the podcast. We don't need to bring it up. He needs to play a good chunk of minutes at the 4. In order for him to do that, you have to have a competent 5-man. And Nana Njoku, I just can't envision a scenario in which he goes from not seeing the floor to a starting level 5 guy in the Big East. Not with Donovan Clingan, not with Oso Ighodaro. Did I say the wrong name? Is it?
No,
is it,
Ighodaro is, but he might. I think he's a senior. I don't remember.
No, I think he's eligible for another year.
Okay.
But either way, not with
He's
him,
also showing up on draft radar.
not with Soriano, who's now the
Yeah.
captain of St. John's under Rick Pitino, right? Like, it's, I think Kalkbrenner's back at Creighton. I could be wrong, but I think he's back. Nunji's fucking married at Xavier, and I think he even has another year of eligibility, right? Like, so you're talking about a very deep 5-man roster in the Big East again.
Yeah.
And Nana Njoku's going to be expected to compete. If he does, like, great. I'm not ragging on the guy, but like, this is one of the things where I'm like, we can't get like a grad transfer 5-man to like play a role for a year. So while we kind of get and build Nana up a little bit and work him into the rotation and then get those recruits that we are targeting for 24, like, we can't get a grad transfer rental.
I think what we're doing, at least and this is pure speculation, but I think what we're doing is we know we're going to have changes on the wings. We just know that we're going to have changes on the wings. We know that there's guards that are probably going, like, Caleb's gone, so we need a guard.
Slater's gone. So
Slater's gone. We need a wing. Cam's gone. We need a guard. We need a wing. So, like, we know there's changes on the wings. We're still unaware. Like, I think what they feel, like, to your point is, and this might not be ideal, but I think what they feel is, we know Eric's a great 5-man, even though he probably should be playing more 4. And they're just going to be like, we're going to trust Nana to play those 10 to 15 minutes. And if anything happens, maybe there's some roster reconstruction around, and like, maybe we're getting more of a like skilled. I think what will more than likely happen, because I feel like we have an aversion to bigs, is, are we going to get another like skilled 6'8", 4? Are we going to get another Eric? If we get another Eric who can play the 5 and could let Eric be the 4, I think that's more likely. So that's what I would probably look at as compared to getting another pure 5-man. It's going to be, do we get another skilled 4 that, like, okay, Eric's playing the 4 right now, but like, we have this guy who can go, like, essentially, so we can go 5 out, which would be great. But I feel like that's where we're going to more lean to. We reached out to Chris Mack at Harvard. Chris Mack, no. What am I making his name? I can't remember. Ledlum. I don't know why. I was missing BJ Mack and Chris Ledlum. Chris Ledlum at Harvard, who is kind of that kind of player, which is like where I'd imagine they're thinking in that realm of like, well, we'll play him and Eric together and they can switch. That's what I'd imagine we're doing until I hear more. But like, it is a lot to expect of Nana to give us 10, 15 minutes when, frankly, he hasn't done that.
He hasn't done anything.
His entire career. That's not to say he's not capable of it, because he was a 4-star recruit. He's a high-level basketball player. I think he could be really, really good, but like, he hasn't been on the floor. And you need to be on the floor. Like, that's just what it is. Like, as much as development is behind the scenes, like, he has 10 games to his Villanova career that he's played in. Like, maybe. Probably, yeah. So
and it's like a couple of spot minutes and like basically with the walk-ons, like, I mean, I'm on this one, I'm like, look, so kind of big picture. We were very comfortable saying, be patient with Kyle, be patient with the staff. Like, it's different, it's unique. He's got to come in. He's not going to be Jay Wright, he's young coach, whatever. But like, there doesn't seem to be this outward sense of urgency. We called this out a couple the last podcast or 2 podcasts ago. And when I mean urgency, like, we don't need to be on 40 lists. We don't like, because it just seems like Arkansas is just basically like, yep, ping, ping. They're just swiping right on everybody, right? Like,
Yeah.
right, like, but for us, like, it feels like we're being targeted to who we reach out to. Like, if we want to reach out, like, we give a shit, like, we want to actually get involved with a guy,
Yeah.
but then no center. So, like, and again, I made that point earlier, but like, when I'm looking at the coaching staff and when I'm asking about sense of urgency, that tells me that they're not have a sense of urgency for next year. And look, expectations wise, we'll get into this more broadly, kind of like in the off-season podcasts.
Once we know
like,
what the team is.
But like, yeah, and once we know what the team is, but like, get it in your head. This team is not going to be preseason top 5 in the Big East. Like, just get it out of your head right now, because
there's a strong chance we're like 10th.
It might be bottom 4, right?
Yeah.
Like, right. And we can talk about if that's okay or not. I'm sure it is, but like,
It's not really.
no, but realistically, the Big East is so fucking loaded at the top next year because Marquette brings a ton back. Creighton brings a ton back. Xavier brings a ton back. They've been portaling guys out like crazy, which tells me Miller's got a plan. Per Krisa transferred out of Arizona and immediately picked up a crystal ball to Xavier, which tells me that yeah, Miller's got some tricks up his sleeve.
Oh, we're gonna hate Kirk Krisa in the Big East so much.
Yeah, Miller's got some tricks up his sleeve. He's gonna tool up Xavier a lot from a talent perspective. And did I already bring up UConn? Like, UConn is not bringing a ton back. They're bringing about half their roster back.
They'll bring back Klingon.
Yeah.
And then honestly, in Caravan, they're bringing in they
have one of the best class in the country.
Yeah, they have the best class in the country. They're what they're calling their Fab Five. And yeah, okay, that's a bunch of freshmen. But then I'd imagine we're gonna see, so that's like 7 players: Klingon, Caravan, Fab Five, and then it's like Samson Johnson, I think, is still there. And then they'll probably portal in 2 to 3 depth veteran players, and then you have a team. And like, UConn has a kid, Stephon Castle, who is going to be
forward, right? Like,
he's a big point guard. He's Cade Cunningham. Yeah. Like, he's not as lauded as Cade Cunningham, but that's the kind of player he is. He's going to be great. So UConn's reloading.
They're going to be top 5 automatically.
They're currently in the Final Four. So it's like, yeah, they have a grace year. Like, even if they were taking a step back, which they won't be.
But like, you realistically have 3 to 4 Big East teams in the top 15, like AP top 15 preseason next year.
Yep.
Right. Like, so there's your top 4, right? Then you have Pitino, who the fuck knows what he's going to do in the portal. And in the last gasp of the recruiting trail here.
But it's going to be something.
It's going to be something. And he's going to be Rick Pitino. And the Garden's going to be fucking on fire. Right? Like, Kim English at Providence is going to keep, there was announcements today, he's going to keep a third to a half of that roster from last year.
Did you just see? I just saw it like maybe 20 minutes ago. He played Jaden Pierre in basketball and said, like, I don't know, but it was like on Insta Live or whatever. He played him in pickup and was like, if I beat you, you're staying. Jaden Pierre just like said he's transferring. He said, if I beat you, you're staying and we're working together. And if not, you can transfer. Kim English beat him because, first off, Kim English was an NBA player. Kim English, people forget, and if I'm doing the math right, was Darren Hilliard's teammate in Detroit. So like, was in the NBA not that long ago.
Right.
So that's just I think that's very funny.
Okay, so yeah, so he's going to keep like half of his roster minimally. Croswell moves on and Bynum has moved on, but I think Bynum moving on, from the rumors that I've heard, was probably a mutual thing. Let's just say the proximity to Mohegan Sun might not have been good for him. I'll leave it at that. That's what the rumor mill tells me at Providence. But the Providence rumor mill is special, as we've come. They got
rumors on rumors there.
Oh yeah,
but that is news to me.
So let's keep moving on here. Kind of like, so Providence is probably going to be, they'll probably be in the mix. Hall had like a culture building year, what I'll call for them. And then you still got DePaul, but then Georgetown all of a sudden comes into the fold. with their kind of stolen valor team under Ed Cooley. I don't think they'll be great next year, but like they're bringing guys in and Cooley's
Yeah.
Cooley. So yeah, this is going to be a hard nut to crack next year. And look, if the program is basically going to say, yeah, we looked at the landscape of the conference next year, and this one's just not the one worth competing in, then like they can't actually come out and say that,
I would
obviously.
lose my mind if they said that.
Right. Yeah, of course. But like if they basically was just like, we're playing for 2024, 2025 season, because that's when we think we can pick the program off the mat, if you will. Like, maybe, but I don't, but that to me, I'm going back to the point that I said, like, not enough urgency. Because if you were really urgent about 23, 24, then you need to go out and get a 5. Like, I'm going to be complaining about this all year. Like, that's really problematic for me. Like, you can load up on the guard position, but unless this team is going to be the 06 Villanova team where Will Sheridan plays the 5, and that's kind of Eric Dixon's role, and we have elite guard play, which doesn't really exist in the portal unless we go get guys like Caleb Love, which we're not. Like, then I don't know where we're going.
I think I hear you. I think versatility is just going to be the name of the game, whatever it is. So as long as that 5 can do other stuff, I'm leaning for probably more of a playmaking 4 than a pure 5, just like thinking versatility. But to your point, like about everything, first off, if they came out and said, or they just like clearly were playing,
I'm not saying they would come out and say no.
If they are clearly playing for 23-24, which I would think is an absolutely insane proposition. Like, we've already seen it happen with the portal. You can change a season immediately. You can go to the portal and go from 4-24 to a tournament team just by using the portal and hitting on 2 recruits. Like, you develop your stars in-house, you add portal pieces, and you're smart with NIL. You do that, and like, you can find success. We've already seen that. Every single team, and this isn't an original thought, Sam Vecini on Game Theory podcast was talking about this, but every single team in the Final Four has a unique roster construction. UConn went in the portal, got bit pieces, had a star in Snogo, had a player that developed into a star in Jordan Hawkins, and then had like stud freshmen. Miami had depth pieces, had a star in Wong, added 2 studs from the portal. FAU kind of built internally and plays modern basketball and like spreads you out and isn't like super big dependent. And then San Diego State did what I feel like Villanova fans would love to do, is they got old, they stayed old, and they're just like, San Diego State's a bunch of 24-year-olds and just tough as nails. And like, all 4 completely different. So there's like a billion ways that we can get creative with roster construction and find success. It's just, we need to execute on that. I'm going to continue to be patient for, what's it today, March 28th? I'll give us like 3 more weeks of patience, maybe 2. And then if I don't hear anything by mid-April, then I'm going to be like, all right, what the hell are we doing? I'd imagine by that point, we'd also hear more from our players and we'll have a better say of like what we need to do.
Yeah, we'll get that. And we'll also know probably a little bit more about coaching staff, because there's been rumors around that too. We talked about how
which is a whole other thing. Yeah.
I've heard rumors about Nardi still. So we'll learn more.
Yeah.
In the coming days. There was one other thing I want to talk about on the rumor mill, because we've been rumoring this entire time, is that Fanta on the field of 68 said the other day that there have been rumors flying around that like the Big 12 might be interested in adding UConn and Villanova in addition to like the addition of Gonzaga or whatever that they were talking about. Like,
thanks, I hate it.
Yeah. So that was the rumor that was flying around. I don't put a lot of stock in that.
We just literally just have seen how good the Big East is, and like this tournament was like, as much as the
Big East tournament.
Yeah, as much as the last 10 years have been Villanova, like this was huge because it was every other team that like stepped up, frankly.
And in addition to that, in the middle of all of that, people couldn't keep the Big East out of their fucking mouth because of the Cooley and Patino hires and all the drama surrounding that. So like the Big East just has this feeling of like, yeah, we're back. Like it feels like the Big East is like the old Big East. We got that old thing back, baby.
Yeah, it feels good. It
Yeah.
sucks that UConn's probably going to win the other next title, but I'll live with it.
That was where I was going to go next. Who's going to win the national championship?
I mean, smart money is just it's on UConn. I don't want them to win because I just don't want number 5 for them. It's nothing really against the team. I think it's actually a really well put together team. It's like 40% against Hurley. He just rubs me the wrong way.
He rubs everybody the wrong way.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what makes him such a great heel for the conference, right?
It feels inevitable. I think the issue, I mean, they're just so fucking good. They're just like so from top to bottom, they are so fucking good.
When they play at this level, they don't play like a normal college basketball team.
No.
They look like they're playing a different game than the team that they're playing.
Yeah. Miami, unless like Pack and Wong just can go off, I don't see a way that they like really do it. Like they don't have anyone to match the size. Honestly, the best team, the team with the best
Marquette
team
beat UConn twice.
Yeah, but like,
and they got the coach. They
yeah,
got Larinaga.
Like maybe they can figure it out. My money would probably be on San Diego State though, just because San Diego State plays really fucking good defense and is grown men across the ball, and like I feel like would be able to mess up the offensive flow and prevent like post entry passes to Sonogo, and just they'd stick to Hawkins. That like that one, if it's UConn San Diego State, prepare for the ugliest national championship game of all time, because UConn's good. UConn will get in the mud with you, but like San Diego State lives in the mud, and so we'll see. But I'm like 93%. It's just going to be UConn. I have like a little bit. I have like 5% San Diego State, 2%, 1.5% Miami, and then like maybe FIU just like is riding they're not really a Cinderella. They won 31 games. They're a fantastic team. Yeah. But like no one was really expecting them to be here, but like they're a really good team. So maybe. But I'm like, yeah, 93% UConn. It's just it feels inevitable.
It does. They feel inevitable. It does.
Yeah.
It really does feel inevitable. Look, I picked them in my bracket, so for that reason I'll be happy. Unfortunately, and this always comes back to this, like if they play FAU for sure, and this sounds terrible, but I'm going to be rooting for UConn because I am a big believer in loving the fact that I love that Villanova is the lowest or the worst seed to ever win the national championship. I love that fact, and I need that to stay clear. And it's very funny because the only other times that have been at risk happens to be when UConn is the other side. Like, they were the 3 and they played Butler, who was an 8 in 2011. They were a 7 and they played Kentucky, who was an 8 in 2014. And here we are. We could have a 4-9 matchup.
It feels like that kind of just says it's going to be UConn FAU, and then UConn's going to win.
Yeah, it's kind of feels like that. I wouldn't be shocked by whoever wins the San Diego State FAU.
Yeah, that could be either.
And because there's so much destiny vibes in both of them that like I'm just forgetting the actual basketball and just riding the vibe train. Like that's vibes versus vibes over there.
Yeah.
Whereas like Miami has like the coach and the guard play, right? Like so like if they're going to formulate a game plan, it might look a lot like Marquette's game plan versus UConn. And if I'm Larinaga, I'm probably pulling the Marquette tapes and being like, what the fuck did Shaka do here? Other than that, I don't see how anything happens. Like, I don't see how this isn't UConn winning both games by 15 plus. I feel like they're just going to storm all the way through it. I really do.
So you like the 8 seed thing. I like the fact that the 2018 team was the last team to roll through that, and I want them to keep that for a bit. And I don't want UConn to be the one to be like, 2018 did that by like 15 or 12 points, and UConn started by like they won every game.
I get that.
25.
So in that case, then you're rooting for Miami.
Probably more than likely. Yeah.
Because then you can stop them in their tracks.
Yes. Yeah. Realistically, yeah.
I'm not rooting for Miami, though. I'd be rooting for Mountain West, probably. I'd be rooting for San Diego State.
I kind of want to see FAU win it just because I'm so curious what that would do to the program. Just like what happens when a Conference USA team wins the national? Like
they're
Conference
moving to
USA
AFC
team
next year. They move
Oh,
it
they
to
are
the
going to AAC. Okay, yeah.
So they
I
get to
forgot.
carry that with them. Houston's moving out. I don't know if that's next year or the year after, but
Yeah.
Houston's moving out to the Big 12. There's a
Oh,
lot going on.
that gets so much more interesting then because they're moving up a level, and it's just like, I mean, up a level. Like they've been better than every AAC team except for Houston. Houston's not even in the Final Four, so whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So off-season schedule here. We have the 40s. I think that's the only other one left that we have in this season. We're going to hold off on that podcast until we have a little bit more clarity in the portal.
We're
So
gonna have like, I feel like we're gonna have like 2 emergency pods. Like
we
something's
might have
gonna
an
happen.
emergency
Yeah.
pod or an emergency space here or there.
Yeah.
Like I might throw a space together on Twitter, but like I don't think we're going to do another podcast, another full blown podcast planned until the 40s. And I want to get a little bit deeper into the portal. So we'll let the national championship game play out, and we'll let everything else play out a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we'll wait and then we'll do the 40s episode. So look, that's going to do it for us here on the Full 40. Thank you everybody for listening. And as always, let's go Nova.